Nakara Station smelled like rust and desperation. Kang Tae pulled his worn jacket tighter as he walked through the crowded corridors. The station floated at the edge of known space, far from any law or order. Here, credits talked, and morals stayed silent. Tae had come to deliver medical supplies. A simple job. Get in, get paid, get out. He had done this run many times before. His ship, the Biol, waited in the docking bay with Yunhana keeping watch. She had warned him not to wander. He should have listened. But the station was a maze, and Tae had taken a wrong turn. Now he found himself in a part of Nakara he had only heard whispers about, the slave district. The corridor opened into a wide chamber filled with cages. Dozens of them. Inside each cage, beings from across the galaxy waited to be sold. Some were small and trembling. Others were large and broken. All of them had the same look in their eyes. Empty, defeated. Tae felt his stomach turn. He had seen many dark things in his years as a cargo hauler. But this was different. This was wrong in a way that made his bones ache. He should leave. This was not his business. He was just a human, a member of a minor species that the galaxy barely noticed. What could he do against something this big? He turned to go. Then he saw them. Two figures sat in a cage near the back of the chamber. They were tall, with silver skin that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Their bodies were thin, too thin, and covered in scars. One of them was smaller, younger maybe, with soft features and frightened eyes. The other was a female warrior. Tae knew she was a warrior because of the way she held herself. Even in chains, even starving, she sat with her back straight and her chin raised. But her eyes told a different story. They were the eyes of someone who had seen everything burn. She was Valori. Tae had heard of them. A proud race of warriors who had fought against the Dominion for 300 years. They had lost. Their world had been destroyed. Now the survivors were scattered across the galaxy, sold as slaves or hunted like animals. The warrior noticed him watching. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, slowly, she crawled toward the edge of the cage. Her movements were painful to watch. She had been beaten recently. Her silver skin was marked with dark bruises. She reached the bars and wrapped her thin fingers around them. Her eyes locked onto Tae's face. He saw something there. Not hope. Hope had died in her long ago. But something else. A tiny spark of desperation. Please purchase us. Human, she whispered. Her voice was rough, broken from screaming or silence. We will serve. We will die for you. Just, not for them. Tae followed her gaze to the crowd gathering near the auction platform. He saw warlords in heavy armor, crime lords with cruel smiles. Beings who would use these two Valori for terrible things. Entertainment, sport. Worse. The younger Valori pressed close to the warrior, trembling. They were siblings, Tae realized. The warrior was protecting the young one. Even now. Even when she had nothing left. I am not here to buy slaves, Tae said quietly. The warrior's eyes did not change. She had expected this answer. She released the bars and began to pull back into the shadows of her cage. Wait, Tae said. She stopped. Tae did not know why he spoke. He did not know why his feet carried him toward the auction platform. He did not know why his hand reached into his pocket and felt the credits there. Enough for fuel, enough for food, enough for two slaves that nobody wanted. The auctioneer was a fat creature with too many eyes and not enough soul. He grinned when he saw Tae approach. Ah, a human. Rare to see your kind in this part of the station. Looking for something special? Those two, Tae said, pointing to the cage. The Valori. The auctioneer's grin faded slightly. Them? The warrior is damaged goods, friend. Fought back too many times. Had to break her spirit the hard way. And the little one is useless. A healer, they say, but too weak to work. I can show you better stock. How much? The auctioneer studied Tae with his many eyes. He saw the worn jacket, the old boots, the face of a man who hauled cargo for a living. More than you can afford, human. How much? Tay repeated. A number was spoken. It was high, but not as high as Tay had feared. Damaged goods. Useless stock. The galaxy had already decided these 2 lives were worthless. Tay felt anger rise in his chest. Hot and sharp. He pushed it down. Anger would not help here. Only credits would help. I will pay, he said. The bidding began. A few others raised their hands, but their interest faded quickly. The warrior was too broken. The healer was too weak. One by one, the other bidders dropped away. When the auctioneer's hammer fell, Kangtae owned 2 Valori slaves. The cage was opened. The warrior helped the younger one stand. They walked toward Tay with slow, careful steps. The warrior kept her body between Tay and her sibling. Ready to take a blow that might come, no blow came. Follow me, Tay said. My ship is in docking bay 7. He turned and walked. After a moment, he heard their footsteps behind him. Light. Hesitant. Like animals following a trap. The walk back to the Biol was silent. Other beings in the corridors stared at Tay and his new property. Some laughed. Some shook their heads. A human with Valori slaves. What a joke. Tay ignored them all. When they reached the ship, Hana was waiting at the ramp. Her arms were crossed, and her face was dark with anger. Tell me you did not do what I think you did, she said. Tay walked past her. Prepare 2 beds in the crew quarters. Tay, we are cargo haulers. Not beds, Hana. And food. They look like they have not eaten in days. Hana opened her mouth to argue. Then she looked at the 2 Valori standing at the bottom of the ramp. She saw the scars, the bruises, the fear. She saw the way the warrior stood in front of the younger one, still protecting, still fighting in the only way she could. Hana closed her mouth. She turned and went inside the ship. Tay looked back at the Valori. The warrior watched him with those empty, burning eyes. What is your name? Tay asked. Silence. Then, slowly, an answer. Riva. And the other? Oren. My sibling. Tay nodded. I am Kangtae. Welcome aboard the Biol. He walked up the ramp without looking back. After a long moment, 2 sets of footsteps followed him into the ship. The door closed behind them. The engines hummed to life. And Nakara Station grew smaller and smaller in the darkness of space. Tay did not know what he had just done. He did not know what would come next. But as he sat in the pilot's chair and guided his ship toward the stars, he felt something he had not felt in years. He felt like he had made the right choice. The Biol was not a large ship. It had a cockpit, a small cargo hold, a tiny kitchen, 2 crew quarters, and an engine room that Hana treated like her personal kingdom. For years, it had been home to only 2 people. Now it held 4. Hana did not let Tay forget her anger. She prepared the beds as he asked. She brought food from the kitchen. But she did all of this with hard eyes and a tight jaw. This is a mistake, she said when Tay joined her in the cockpit. We are smugglers, Tay. We move cargo. We stay invisible. We do not make enemies. I did not make enemies. I bought 2 starving people. You bought 2 Valori. The Dominion hunts them like sport. If anyone finds out we have them, we become targets too. Tay said nothing. He knew she was right. But he also knew he could not have walked away from that cage. What are you going to do with them? Hana asked. I do not know. You spent our fuel money on slaves you do not know what to do with. Yes. Hana threw her hands up and walked away. Tay heard her footsteps fade toward the engine room. She always went there when she was angry. The machines did not argue with her. Tay checked the ship's course, then went to find his new passengers. Riva and Oren were in the crew quarters. They sat together on one of the beds, pressed into the corner like animals expecting a trap. The food Hana had brought sat untouched on a small table nearby. Tay stood in the doorway. You should eat. Riva's eyes moved to the food, then back to Tay. She did not move. It is not poisoned, Tay said. Still nothing. Tay sighed. He walked to the table, picked up one of the food packages, and took a bite. He chewed, swallowed, and showed his empty mouth. See? Safe. Riva watched him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached for a food package, but she did not eat it. She handed it to Oren first. Only after her sibling began to eat did Riva take food for herself. Tay understood. In her world, the one with power ate first. She was testing him, waiting for him to punish her for not obeying. He did not punish her. He simply sat down in a chair across the room and waited. Oren ate quickly, desperately, like someone who did not know when the next meal would come. Riva ate slowly, carefully, never taking her eyes off Tay. "The beds are yours," Tay said. "Both of them. You can rest." "Where will you sleep?" Riva asked. Her voice was still rough, but stronger now. "I have slept in the cockpit before. It is not comfortable, but it works." Riva's eyes narrowed. "You give us your beds. You give us your food. You ask nothing in return. I ask that you rest and recover." "Why?" Tay did not have an answer. He stood up and walked to the door. "Get some sleep. We have 3 days before we reach the next station. You are safe here." He left before Riva could ask more questions he could not answer. The next 3 days passed slowly. Hana avoided Tay as much as possible on a small ship. She spent her time in the engine room, talking to machines instead of people. Tay flew the ship and tried not to think too hard about what he had done. Riva and Oren stayed in their room at first. They came out only for food and water. Always together. Always watching for danger. Riva never let Oren out of her sight. But on the second day, something changed. Tay was in the kitchen making tea when he heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned and found Oren standing in the doorway. Alone, the young Valori looked different from Riva, softer, gentler. The glow beneath Oren's silver skin was brighter, warmer. A healer's light, Tay guessed. "May I sit?" Oren asked. The voice was quiet but clear. Tay nodded. Oren sat at the small table and watched Tay make tea. "Your sister is not with you," Tay said. "She is sleeping. Real sleep. Not the half-sleep of fear. It is the first time since—" Oren stopped. Swallowed. "It is the first time in many cycles." Tay poured 2 cups of tea and sat across from Oren. He pushed 1 cup forward. Oren wrapped thin fingers around it, feeling the warmth. "I wanted to thank you," Oren said. "Riva will not say it. She does not trust easily. But I see what you did. You saved us. I bought you. That is not the same as saving. In our world, it is. The others who wanted to buy us, they would have done terrible things. The warlords use Valori warriors for arena fights. They make us kill each other for entertainment. And healers like me." Oren shuddered. "There are worse fates than death." Tay felt that hot anger rise again. He pushed it down with a sip of tea. "Tell me about your people," he said. "I have heard stories, but stories are often wrong." Oren looked surprised by the request. But slowly, carefully, the young healer began to speak. The Valori had been a great civilization once. Warriors and scholars, artists and healers. They had lived on a beautiful world with 3 moons and endless forests that glowed at night. They had been proud, perhaps too proud. When the Dominion came, the Valori refused to surrender. They fought for 300 years. Generation after generation picked up weapons and continued the war. But the Dominion was too large, too powerful. One by one, Valori worlds fell, and finally, their home burned. "I was young when it happened," Oren said. "Riva was already a commander. She led the final defense. She watched our world die." Tears rolled down Oren's silver cheeks. "She has not been the same since. The warrior you bought is only a shadow of who she was." Tay listened in silence. When Oren finished, he reached across the table and placed his hand over the healer's thin fingers. "You are safe now," he said. "Both of you, I promise." Oren looked at him with wet eyes. "Humans are strange. We were taught that you are weak, a minor species with no power. But you do not feel weak to me." Tay smiled slightly. "We are small, but we are stubborn. A sound came from the doorway. Tay looked up and saw Riva standing there. She had heard everything. Her face was unreadable. "Come, Oren," she said. "You should rest more." Oren stood and walked to the door. But Riva did not follow immediately. She stayed, staring at Tay. "Why did you buy us, human?" she asked. The same question from the first day. "What do you want from us?" Tay met her eyes. "I want nothing from you, Riva. I saw two people in a cage, about to be sold to monsters. I could not walk away." "That is not an answer. It is the only answer I have." Riva studied him for a long time, searching for the lie, searching for the hidden cruelty, finding nothing. Finally, she turned and walked away. But just before she disappeared down the corridor, Tay heard her speak. "Thank you." It was barely a whisper. But Tay heard it. And for the first time since Nakara Station, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he had not made a mistake after all. In the engine room, Hana listened to the ship's systems hum. She had heard the conversation through the thin walls. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and pretended the tears were from engine grease. Maybe Tay was not so foolish after all. The stars outside the Biol moved slowly as the ship traveled through deep space. Inside, 4 people were learning how to share a small world together. Hana had stopped avoiding Tay. She still thought he was foolish, but she had accepted the situation. That was her way. Complain first. Adapt second. Protect always. Riva had begun to move around the ship more freely. She no longer pressed herself into corners or watched every shadow for threats, but she still kept distance between herself and the humans. Trust was not something she gave easily. Oren was different. The young healer had opened up quickly, spending hours in the kitchen with Hana, asking questions about the ship, about humans, about everything. Oren's curiosity was endless, and Hana found herself enjoying the company despite her earlier anger. It was during one of these kitchen conversations that Oren asked the question that changed everything. Why do the other species think humans are weak? Hana was fixing a broken food processor. She paused, screwdriver in hand, and thought about the question. "Because we are small?" she said. "Compared to most species in the galaxy, humans are physically average. We are not as strong as the Korath. We are not as fast as the Vexen. We do not have natural weapons like claws or venom. On paper, we are nothing special." "But you do not feel weak," Oren said. "You and Tay. You carry yourselves like warriors." Hana laughed. It was not a happy laugh. "We are not warriors. We are survivors. There is a difference." "What is the difference?" Hana set down her screwdriver and looked at Oren. The young Valori's eyes were bright with curiosity. No fear, no judgment, just a genuine desire to understand. "Sit down," Hana said. "Let me tell you about humans." She told Oren about Earth. A small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system. A world that had tried to kill its inhabitants over and over again. Ice ages, plagues, famines, wars that burned across continents. "We should have died 100 times, Hana said. The universe looked at humanity and said, "These creatures are not special. Let them fade away." But we did not fade. We refused. How? We adapted. We invented. We fought. When we faced enemies we could not defeat, we found ways to defeat them anyway. When nature tried to starve us, we learned to grow food. When disease tried to kill us, we learned medicine. When the cold tried to freeze us, we learned to make fire. Hana leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Do you know what the most dangerous thing about humans is, Oren? It is not our strength or speed. It is our spite. When the universe tells us to die, we say no. When someone tries to destroy us, we do not just survive. We come back. And we remember." Oren was silent for a long moment. Then, quietly, the healer said, "That sounds terrifying." "It is. The galaxy has not learned this yet, because humans are still new to space. still small, still building. But one day, someone will push humanity too far, and on that day, the galaxy will learn what we are capable of. From the doorway, Riva's voice cut through the silence. Pretty words. But words do not win wars. Hana and Orin turned. Riva stood leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. She had been listening. The Valori had pretty words too, Riva continued. Honor, courage, duty. We spoke them as our world burned. Words did not save us. Hana stood and faced the warrior. You are right. Words alone mean nothing. But words backed by action? That is different. What actions have humans taken? You are cargo haulers. Smugglers. You hide in the shadows of the galaxy and take scraps from the powerful. Yes, for now, because we are not ready to fight yet, but we will be. Riva made a sound of disgust. Hope is a poison. It makes you believe things will get better when they will not. Hope is not what drives humans, Hana said. Anger does. Stubbornness does. The absolute refusal to accept that we cannot win. She stepped closer to Riva. Your people fought the Dominion for 300 years. 300 years of blood and sacrifice. And you lost. Do you know what humans would do in that situation? Die, like everyone else. No. We would wait. We would hide. We would let the enemy think they had won. And then, when they had forgotten about us, when they thought we were beaten, we would come back, not with armies, with knives in the dark, with poison in the water, with fire in their homes. We would make them regret ever touching us. Riva stared at Hana. Something flickered in those empty, burning eyes. Not hope, something darker, something hungry. You speak of revenge. I speak of justice. There is a difference. Before Riva could respond, an alarm sounded from the cockpit. Tay's voice came over the ship's speakers. Everyone to the cockpit. Now. They moved quickly through the narrow corridors. When they reached the cockpit, Tay was staring at a screen with a strange expression on his face. What is it? Hana asked. A distress signal. Very weak. Almost missed it. So? Distress signals are common in this sector. It is probably pirates pretending to be victims. Look at the encoding. Hana leaned closer to the screen. Her eyes widened. That is not possible. Riva pushed forward. When she saw the signal, her entire body went still. Her silver skin flickered with light, brighter than Tay had ever seen. That is Valori military code, she whispered. Old code, from before the fall. Survivors? Orin asked, voice trembling. Maybe, or maybe a trap. Tay looked at Riva. What do you want to do? Riva's hands were shaking. Her jaw was tight. For a moment, she looked like she might break apart. We have to investigate. If there are survivors, if there are more of us, it could be a trap, Hana repeated. The Dominion might be using Valori codes to hunt the last survivors. I know. Riva turned to Tay. I am asking anyway. Please. Tay looked at the signal on the screen. He looked at Riva. At the desperate hope she was trying so hard to hide. He looked at Orin, whose eyes were wet with tears. He looked at Hana, who shook her head slowly but did not say no. Set a course, Tay said. We are going to find out what is out there. Riva closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her silver cheek. Thank you. Tay nodded and began plotting the new course. As his fingers moved across the controls, he felt something shift in the ship. Something had changed between the four of them. They were no longer just a human and his passengers. They were becoming something else. Something like a crew. Something like a family. The Bial turned toward the distress signal and accelerated into the darkness. Somewhere ahead, in the cold void between stars, answers were waiting. Tay did not know if those answers would bring hope or horror, but he knew one thing for certain. He was not going to let Riva and Orin face them alone. The asteroid field stretched across the darkness like a graveyard of stone. Massive rocks floated in silence, spinning slowly in the void. Between them, hidden in the shadows, something waited. Tay guided the Biol carefully through the field. One wrong move and a drifting asteroid could tear the ship apart. Hana stood beside him, watching the sensors for any sign of danger. "The signal is coming from there," Riva said, pointing to a cluster of asteroids ahead. Between those two large rocks, Tay squinted at the screen. At first, he saw nothing. Then, slowly, a shape emerged from the darkness. A ship, old and battered, covered in damage from weapons fire and collisions. It was dark, running on minimal power, nearly invisible. "Valori design," Riva whispered. "A refugee transport. They were used to evacuate civilians during the war." "Is it still alive?" Oren asked. "Only one way to find out." Tay brought the Biol alongside the derelict ship and extended the docking tube. The connection was rough, but it held. Air hissed as the two ships joined. "I am going in," Riva said. "Not alone," Tay replied. He grabbed a flashlight and a small weapon from the storage locker. "Hana, keep the engines warm. If this goes wrong, be ready to run." "Always am." Riva, Oren, and Tay entered the docking tube together. The air inside was cold and stale. Emergency lights flickered weakly along the walls. The ship was dying, but it was not dead yet. They moved through dark corridors, stepping over debris and broken panels. Riva led the way, her body tense, her eyes scanning every shadow. She knew this kind of ship. She had commanded evacuations during the war. She knew what they might find. The first body appeared around a corner. A Valori elder, curled against the wall. Skin faded to dull gray. Dead for months. Maybe longer. Oren made a small sound of grief but kept walking. More bodies followed. Adults. Children. Families who had died holding each other. Starvation. Tay guessed. The ship had run out of food long ago, but not everyone was dead. They heard the sound before they saw the source. A weak voice, singing. An old song, barely above a whisper. Riva broke into a run. Tay and Oren followed, racing through the dark corridors until they reached a large cargo bay. Inside, they found them. Survivors. 43 Valori, huddled together in the darkness. Elders, children, a handful of wounded soldiers. They were thin, weak, barely alive. But they were breathing. When they saw Riva, several of them screamed. Not with joy, with terror. "Get back!" one of the soldiers shouted, raising a broken weapon. "Get away from us!" Riva stopped. She held up her empty hands. "I am Valori. I am one of you." "Liar! You travel with a human. Humans work with the Dominion. They sell our people to the slavers." Tay felt the weight of their fear. He understood. They had been running for so long, hunted for so long, that they no longer trusted anyone. "I am not with the Dominion," he said calmly. "I am just a cargo hauler. I found Riva and Oren at a slave auction. I bought them to save them, not to hurt them." "Lies. All species lie." Riva stepped forward slowly. "Do you know who I am? Look at my face. Look at my scars. I am Riva of the Third Fleet. I commanded the defense of the northern continent. I watched our world burn." Her voice cracked. "I have lost everything. Just like you. I am not your enemy." Silence fell over the cargo bay. The survivors stared at Riva, searching her face for truth. One of the elders, a female with faded bioluminescence, slowly rose to her feet. "Commander Riva," she whispered, "we thought you were dead. I wished I was, but I am here now, and I am going to help you." The elder looked at Tay. Her eyes were filled with suspicion, but also exhaustion. She was too tired to fight anymore. Why would a human help us? Tay thought about the question. He thought about Nakara Station, about the cage, about Riva's whispered plea. "Because someone had to," he said simply. The elder studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Very well. Help us, human. If you are lying, we are too weak to stop you anyway." Oren moved immediately, rushing to the wounded and beginning to treat them with whatever supplies the Beol had. Riva organized the survivors, counting heads and assessing their condition. Tay carried the weakest ones back to his ship, making trip after trip until his arms burned with exhaustion. By the time they finished, the Beol was packed beyond capacity. People filled every corner, every corridor, every available space. It was cramped and uncomfortable, and absolutely necessary. When the last survivor was aboard, Riva found Tay in the cockpit. He was plotting a course to the nearest safe station, running calculations on fuel and supplies. "We do not have enough food for everyone," she said. "I know. We do not have enough fuel to reach safety." "I know. Then what do we do?" Tay turned to look at her. For the first time, she did not see a weak human. She saw something else. Determination. The stubborn refusal to accept defeat. "We find a way," he said. "That is what humans do." He returned to his calculations. Riva stood behind him, watching. One of the elders approached them. She was the same one who had spoken in the cargo bay. Her name was Setha, and she had been a council member before the fall. "Human," she said. "Tay, there is something you must know." "What is it?" "We were not just running from starvation. We were running from him." "Him?" "High Commander Dreth. The warlord who conquered our world. He has made it his mission to destroy every last Valori in the galaxy. He calls it cleaning up loose ends. He believes our warrior culture is dangerous, that we might inspire other conquered species to rebel." Riva's hands clenched into fists. "Dreth. I watched him execute our leaders. He made us kneel in the ashes of our temples and beg for mercy. And then he killed them anyway. He is hunting us," Setha continued. "He has ships searching every corner of known space. Sooner or later, he will find us. And when he does, he will kill us all." The weight of her words settled over the cockpit like a heavy blanket. Tay felt the eyes of everyone on him. The survivors. Hana, Oren, Riva, they were all looking at him, waiting to see what the human would do. Tay was silent for a long time. He thought about his life before this moment. Simple, safe, invisible. He thought about the path ahead. Dangerous, impossible, almost certainly fatal. He thought about 43 survivors. About children who had done nothing wrong except be born to the wrong species. About Riva, who had lost everything and still found the strength to protect her sibling. "Where is Dreth now?" Tay asked quietly. Setha blinked. "What? Dreth. Where is he?" He is preparing for a summit. A celebration of the Dominion's victories. He will be on his flagship, surrounded by his fleet. "Good." Tay turned back to the controls. "Then we know where to find him." Riva grabbed his arm. "What are you saying?" Tay looked at her. His eyes were calm but filled with fire. "I am saying that running is not enough. You can run forever, and he will always be chasing. The only way to end this is to end him. That is impossible. He has an army. We have nothing. We have something better. We have nothing to lose." Tay looked at Hana. She was staring at him like he had grown a second head. But then, slowly, a smile spread across her face. "You crazy fool," she said. "You want to start a war?" "No," Tay replied. "I want to finish one." The hidden moon had no name. It floated in a forgotten corner of the galaxy, orbiting a dead planet that no one cared about, perfect for people who did not want to be found. Tay had discovered this place years ago. During his early days as a smuggler, he had kept it secret, saving it for a day when he might need somewhere to disappear. Today, it became a base of operations. The survivors settled into the abandoned mining tunnels beneath the moon's surface. It was cold and dark, but it was safe. More importantly, it gave Tay time to plan. "This is madness," Hana said for the 100th time. They were in a makeshift command room, surrounded by old screens and salvaged equipment. "We are going to attack a Dominion High Commander." "With what?" "Hope and determination?" "With strategy," Tay replied. He was studying maps of Dominion space, tracing routes and calculating distances. Dreth is powerful, but he is arrogant. He thinks the Valori are finished. He will not expect an attack, because an attack is impossible. Nothing is impossible, just difficult. Riva watched them argue from across the room. She had been quiet since they arrived on the moon, spending her time with the survivors, organizing them, protecting them. But something had changed in her eyes. The emptiness was still there, but now there was something else alongside it. A spark. "Tell me about human warfare," she said suddenly. Tay and Hana stopped arguing. They turned to look at her. "What do you want to know?" Tay asked. "Everything. You said humans are not strong, not fast, not powerful. Yet you speak of attacking the Dominion like it is possible. How? What is your secret?" Tay leaned back in his chair and thought about the question. How do you explain centuries of human warfare to someone who had never known it? "We cheat," he said finally. Riva frowned. "Cheat? The galaxy fights with rules, honor codes, battle formations. You line up your armies and crash them together until one side breaks. That is how the Valori fought." "Yes?" Riva nodded slowly. "The warrior's code demands honor in combat. Direct confrontation. Fair challenges. And that is why you lost." The words hit hard. Riva's jaw tightened, but she did not look away. "Humans do not fight with honor," Tay continued. "We fight to win. When we face a stronger enemy, we do not meet them head-on. We strike from shadows. We poison wells. We burn supplies. We attack at night when they sleep. We target leaders instead of armies. That is dishonorable. That is survival. Honor is a luxury for those who can afford to lose. When your species faces extinction, honor becomes a chain around your neck." Hannah stepped forward. Tay was military once, Korean Special Forces. They trained him in asymmetric warfare. How to defeat enemies 10 times your size. Riva looked at Tay with new eyes. "You were a soldier?" "A long time ago. I left that life. But I remember what I learned." "Show me." For the next weeks, Tay taught Riva the human way of war. He showed her how to move without being seen, how to strike from unexpected angles, how to use the enemy's strength against them. He taught her about pressure points, about weak spots, about the vulnerabilities that every powerful thing possessed. Riva was a fast learner. Her Valori training had made her strong and skilled, but it had also limited her thinking. She had been taught that warriors faced each other directly, blade to blade. Now she learned that the most dangerous warriors were the ones you never saw coming. "You fight like water," she said one day, after Tay had thrown her to the ground for the 20th time. "You have no form, no pattern. You simply flow into whatever shape is needed." "Exactly. Water is soft, but water wears down mountains." They trained together every day. Riva's body remembered its old strength, growing faster and more dangerous with each session. But more importantly, her mind changed. She stopped thinking like an honorable warrior and started thinking like a survivor. Meanwhile, Hana worked on the weapons. The Biol had a decent defense system, but they needed more firepower. She salvaged parts from the Valori refugee ship and combined them with human technology. The result was ugly but effective. "We cannot win a direct fight," she explained to the group. "But we do not need to. We just need to get Tay close enough to Dreth." The plan was simple. The Dominion Summit was taking place on Dreth's flagship, a massive warship called the Conqueror. Security would be tight, but not perfect. There would be supply ships, entertainment vessels, delegations from allied species, opportunities for infiltration. Tay would pose as a servant, smuggling himself aboard with the help of contacts he had built over years of cargo hauling. Once inside, he would find Dreth and kill him. "This is a suicide mission," Riva said when she heard the plan. "Probably." Tay agreed. "Then why do it?" "Because Dreth will never stop hunting you. As long as he lives, your people have no future. Someone has to end him. And you think you are that someone?" Tay shrugged. "I think I am the only one crazy enough to try." Riva was silent for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to where Tay sat. She dropped to her knees before him, a movement that made him uncomfortable. "What are you doing?" "An old ritual. The pledge of a warrior to their commander." She pulled a small blade from her belt, an old knife with Valori symbols carved into the handle. She held it out to Tay. "Handle first. This blade belonged to my father. It has been carried by warriors of my family for 12 generations. I offer it to you now, along with my life, my strength, my loyalty." Her eyes met his. "I am yours, Varen. Lead us." Tay did not take the blade immediately. "What does Varen mean? The one who shields, the one who protects. It is the highest honor a warrior can give." "Riva, I am just a cargo hauler." "No, you are more than that. You always were." She pushed the blade closer. "Take it. Let me fight beside you. Let me earn back the honor I lost when my world burned." Tay looked at the blade. He thought about refusing. He thought about telling Riva that he did not deserve this. Instead, he took the blade. "Then we fight together," he said. "But you are not my servant. You are my partner. My equal. Is that understood?" Something in Riva's face shifted. The emptiness in her eyes filled with light. "Understood." She rose and stood beside him. Not behind. Beside. Oren came to them that night. The young healer had been working with the survivors, treating the sick and injured, helping them recover. But now Oren had a different purpose. "I want to help," Oren said. "With the mission." "Absolutely not," Riva said immediately. "You are not a warrior. I am not asking to fight, but I can heal. When you storm that ship, people will be hurt. They will need me. It is too dangerous. Everything is dangerous now, sister. At least let me be dangerous for something that matters." Riva looked like she wanted to argue, but Tay placed a hand on her shoulder. "Let Oren decide," he said. "Your sibling is not a child anymore." Riva struggled with herself for a moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. The day of the summit approached. The plan was set. The weapons were ready. The volunteers had been trained. On the night before they left, Tay stood alone on the surface of the nameless moon, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, a tyrant was preparing to celebrate his victories. He had no idea what was coming. Hana found him there. "You know," she said, standing beside him, "when I met you, I thought you were the most boring person in the galaxy. Just a quiet cargo hauler with no ambition. And now? Now I think you might be the most dangerous." Tay smiled slightly. "I will take that as a compliment." "It is." She paused. "Are you scared?" "Terrified." "Good. Scared people are careful. Careful people survive." They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Tomorrow, the war would begin, and the galaxy would learn what happens when you push a human too far. The Conqueror hung in space like a metal mountain. The flagship of High Commander Dreth was enormous, bristling with weapons and armored in thick plating that could survive almost anything. Smaller ships surrounded it like servants around a king. Inside, the Dominion celebrated. Species from across the conquered territories had gathered to honor Dreth and his victories. Banquet halls overflowed with rare foods and expensive drinks. Music played from hidden speakers. Laughter echoed through gilded corridors. No one noticed the servant who moved through the shadows. Tay wore the uniform of a supply worker, bland and forgettable. He carried a tray of drinks and kept his eyes down. Just another invisible worker serving the powerful. Getting aboard had been easier than expected. His smuggler contacts had arranged passage on a catering vessel. The Dominion guards had scanned the workers briefly, searching for weapons. They had not found the small blade hidden in Tay's boot. Valori steel was invisible to most scanners. Now he moved through the ship, memorizing layouts and searching for his target. "Position 1, clear." Hana's voice crackled in his hidden earpiece. She was aboard the Bial, parked among the civilian vessels outside the flagship. "Riva is moving to the secondary objective." "Copy," Tay whispered. The plan had multiple parts. While Tay hunted Dreth, Riva led a small team to the ship's communication array. They would disable it before the attack began, cutting the flagship off from the rest of the fleet. Oren waited with a medical team on one of the transport vessels, ready to treat casualties and evacuate survivors. It was a complicated plan with many ways to fail, but complicated plans were all they had. Tay found his way to the upper decks, where the celebration was loudest. He passed through crowds of aliens, serving drinks and collecting empty glasses. No one looked at him twice. Servants were furniture to these people. Invisible, then he saw him. High Commander Dreth stood at the center of the main banquet hall, surrounded by admirers and bodyguards. He was tall, even for his species, with dark scales and yellow eyes that seemed to see everything. His uniform was covered in medals and symbols of conquest. His smile was the smile of a predator. Tay felt his heart pound faster. This was the being who had burned Riva's world, who had sold her people into slavery, who hunted the survivors like animals. For a moment, the anger threatened to overwhelm him. He wanted to rush forward, to attack immediately, to make this monster pay for everything he had done. But anger was not the human way. The human way was patience. Tay continued serving drinks, moving closer to Dreth, studying the guards, counting the exits. He watched and waited and planned. An hour passed. Then two. The celebration grew louder as the guests drank more. The guards relaxed slightly. Dreth became more arrogant, more confident. Then Hana's voice came through the earpiece. Communications are down. Riva's team succeeded. You are clear to proceed. Tay set down his tray. He removed his servant's jacket and pulled the Valori blade from his boot. The metal was cold against his palm. He walked toward Dreth. The guards noticed him when he was 10 steps away. One of them raised a weapon and shouted for him to stop. Tay did not stop. He moved like water. He flowed around the first guard, slipping past the weapon and driving his elbow into the alien's throat. The guard collapsed, choking. The second guard fired, but Tay was already gone, rolling beneath the shot and coming up behind the attacker. The blade found a gap in the armor. The guard fell. The room exploded into chaos. Guests screamed and ran. More guards rushed forward. But Tay was already through them, dancing between bodies, using the crowd as cover. Dreth's eyes found him. The High Commander did not run. He did not hide. Instead, he smiled that predator's smile and drew his own weapon. A long, curved sword that glowed with energy. A human, Dreth said, his voice filled with amusement. A single human assassin. Is this the best the galaxy can send against me? Tay did not answer. He attacked. The fight was not elegant. There was no honor in it. Tay used every dirty trick he knew, every technique designed to exploit weakness and create advantage. He threw dust in Dreth's eyes. He kicked at joints and pressure points. He used furniture as shields and weapons. But Dreth was strong, faster than Tay expected. The High Commander had conquered worlds for a reason. His sword cut through the air like lightning, nearly taking Tay's head off more than once. They crashed through tables and sent guests scrambling. Tay took a cut across his arm, then another across his side. Blood soaked his clothes. Pain screamed through his body, but he did not stop. Why do you fight? Dreth demanded, pressing his advantage. You are nothing. A minor species from a minor world. What do you hope to accomplish? Tay ducked another swing and drove his blade toward Dreth's heart. The High Commander deflected it, but barely. I am showing the galaxy something, Tay said through gritted teeth. What? That tyrants can bleed. He attacked again, faster, harder, ignoring the pain. He was not fighting to win anymore. He was fighting to prove a point. And then Riva appeared. She came through the door like a silver storm, her body glowing with the light of her ancestors. She had finished her mission and come to find him, and now she saw Dreth, the being who had destroyed everything she loved. Dreth, she said, her voice echoing across the silent room. The High Commander turned, his eyes widened in recognition. Commander Riva, I thought you were dead. I was. Riva raised her weapon, But humans taught me how to live again. They attacked together, human and Valori, fighting as one. Tay struck low while Riva struck high. They covered each other's weaknesses and exploited every opening. Dreth fought back desperately, but he was facing something he did not understand. Two warriors who trusted each other completely. Two species working together without ego or competition, the human way. Riva's blade finally found its mark. It slid through Dreth's defenses and pierced his chest. The High Commander's eyes went wide with shock. "Impossible," he whispered. "Nothing is impossible," Tay said. "Just difficult." Dreth fell. For a moment, the banquet hall was silent. Then alarms began to wail. More guards would come soon. They needed to leave. But first, Tay had something to do. He walked to the communication station and activated the emergency broadcast system. His face appeared on screens throughout the flagship and beyond, to every ship in the fleet and every station in range. "This is a message to the Dominion," he said. His voice was calm despite the blood covering his body. "High Commander Dreth is dead. The Valori are under human protection now. They are not slaves. They are not prey. They are our allies." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Touch them again. And we will teach the galaxy what humanity does to tyrants. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And we never, ever stop." He ended the transmission and turned to Riva. "Time to go." They ran through the chaotic ship, fighting their way toward the docking bay. Hana guided them through the earpiece, warning of guards and finding safe routes. Orin met them at the transport vessel, already treating Tay's wounds as they stumbled aboard. The Biol broke away from the flagship and accelerated into open space. Behind them, the Conqueror descended into chaos, its leader dead and its communications destroyed. Riva sat beside Tay as Orin worked on his injuries. Her silver skin was splattered with enemy blood. Her eyes were bright with tears. "It is done," she whispered. "After all these years, it is finally done." Tay took her hand. "No, it is just beginning." He looked out the viewport at the stars streaming past. The broadcast had been sent. The message had been delivered. Across the galaxy, enslaved species were hearing about a human who had killed a high commander. A human who had declared protection over the hunted Valori. A human who had challenged the Dominion and won. Hope was a dangerous thing, and it was spreading. 6 months had passed since the death of High Commander Dreth. The galaxy was different now. Not completely changed, but shifting. The Dominion still held power over vast territories, but that power was no longer absolute. Cracks had appeared in their control. Whispers of rebellion spread through slave quarters and conquered worlds. And on an uncharted planet at the edge of known space, a new civilization was being born. The Valori colony had no name yet. The survivors had debated many options but could not agree. Some wanted to honor the old world. Others wanted to start fresh. In the end, they decided to wait. Names would come when they were ready. What mattered was that the colony existed. That was miracle enough. Tay stood on a hill overlooking the growing settlement. Below him, construction crews worked on permanent buildings. Children played in the streets. For the first time in years, Valori children had somewhere to play. The planet was not beautiful by most standards. The sky was often gray. The soil required heavy work before it could grow food. The forests were dense and filled with creatures that needed to be studied before they could be trusted. But it was theirs, and that made it perfect. "You are thinking too hard again," Hana said, climbing the hill to join him. "I can see the smoke coming from your ears." Tay smiled slightly. "Just remembering." "Remembering what?" 6 months ago, I was a cargo hauler. My biggest worry was fuel costs and avoiding customs inspections. Now I am, whatever I am, a hero. I do not feel like a hero. Heroes never do. That is what makes them heroes. Hana stood beside him, looking at the colony. She had changed too, in the past months. The engineer who had complained about taking on passengers now ran a fleet of rescue ships. Officially, they were humanitarian cargo haulers. Unofficially, they were something much more. 3 more ships arrived yesterday, Hana said. Refugees from the Dominion. Word is spreading. Enslaved species are starting to believe escape is possible. Can we handle more? We will have to. The fleet is growing, but so are the requests for help. I have contacts on 17 stations now, all watching for people who need to disappear. Tay nodded. It was more than he had ever imagined. What had started as one man buying 2 slaves had become a movement. Small, but real. They walked down the hill together, moving through the colony streets. Valori nodded respectfully as Tay passed. Some of the younger ones whispered his name. The Varan. The one who shields. Tay was still not comfortable with the title, but he had stopped trying to reject it. The Valori needed symbols. He could be a symbol if that was what they needed. They found Oren at the medical center, treating a patient with gentle hands. The young healer had grown into the role of chief physician, running the colony's entire healthcare system. The frightened sibling who had cowered in a slave cage was gone. In that place stood a leader. How is everything? Tay asked. Oren looked up and smiled. Better every day. We had our first natural birth last week. A healthy girl. Her mother named her Tay. Tay blinked. She named her child after me? You saved her life. She wanted to honor that. Oren's smile widened. There are 12 children in the colony now with human names. I think you started a trend. Tay did not know what to say. He was saved from having to respond by the arrival of Riva. The warrior looked different from the broken woman he had bought at Nakara Station. Her silver skin glowed with health. Her scars remained, but they no longer defined her. She stood tall and proud, dressed in armor that combined Valori tradition with human practicality. She was the colony's military commander now, training the next generation of warriors. But she taught them differently than she had been taught. Honor still mattered, but so did survival. The old codes had been updated for a new reality. There you are, Riva said to Tay. The council is waiting. The council can wait 5 more minutes. I wanted to see the colony. You see the colony every day. And every day it amazes me. Riva's hard expression softened slightly. She walked beside Tay as they moved toward the council building, a large structure at the center of the settlement. The council wants to discuss the alliance proposal, Riva said. 2 more species have reached out. They want to join our network. Which species? The Korthan and the Vex. Both conquered by the Dominion decades ago. Both have underground resistance movements that heard your broadcast. 1. Tay shook his head slowly. I never meant to start a rebellion. No. You just meant to save 2 slaves. But actions have consequences, Tay. You showed the galaxy something it had forgotten. That the powerful can be challenged. That tyrants can fall. That hope is not foolish. They reached the council building. Before they entered, Riva stopped Tay with a hand on his arm. The council will offer you a title today, she said. A permanent position. A home among the Valori. I know. Will you accept? Tay thought about the question. He thought about Earth, which he had not seen in years. He thought about the Biol, his ship, his first home. He thought about the life he had lived before all of this. I will accept the home, he said finally, but not the title. I do not want to be a ruler. I just want to help. Riva nodded, as if she had expected this answer. Then what will you do? Keep flying. Keep rescuing. Keep building the network. He looked at her. Keep being your Varan. If you will have me. Something passed between them, an understanding that went deeper than words. Always, Riva said. They entered the council building together. The meeting lasted for hours. Proposals were discussed, alliances debated, plans made for the future. Tay sat through it all, offering advice when asked but mostly listening. The Valori were finding their own way. They did not need a human to lead them. They just needed to know that humans stood beside them. When the meeting finally ended, night had fallen over the colony. Tay walked outside and found a quiet spot on the edge of the settlement. The sky was full of stars, more than he had ever seen from Earth. Each one was a sun. Each sun might have worlds. Each world might have people who needed help. Riva found him there, just as she always did. She stood beside him, not speaking at first, just watching the stars with him. "Do you remember what you said to me that first night on the Biole?" she asked finally. "I said many things. You said you did not know why you bought us. That you just could not walk away from that cage. I remember. I know why now." Riva turned to face him. "You could not walk away because that is not who you are. You are a human. And humans do not accept things that are wrong. They fight them. They change them, even when it is impossible. Especially when it is impossible." Tay was silent for a moment. Then he said, "You give us too much credit. Humans are capable of terrible things too. Every species is capable of terrible things. But every species is also capable of wonderful things. You showed me that." She paused. "You saved me, Tay. Not just my body, my spirit. You taught me that survival is not enough, that we have to live, not just exist. You saved yourself. I just reminded you that you could." Riva smiled. It was a rare thing, that smile. Tay treasured it, perhaps, but I could not have remembered without you. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was still powerful, still conquering, still enslaving. The war was not over. It had barely begun. But here, on this nameless planet, something new was growing. A coalition of the forgotten and the broken. A network of the oppressed. A movement that crossed species and boundaries, and old hatreds. And at the heart of it all, one simple idea that a cargo hauler had carried from a slave market on the edge of known space. That kindness was not weakness. That hope was not foolish. That even the smallest person could change the galaxy. Riva leaned against Tay's shoulder. He put his arm around her. Together, they watched the stars and dreamed of the future. "What comes next?" Riva asked. Tay smiled. "Whatever we make." Above them, the stars burned on, ancient and eternal. But tonight, they seemed a little brighter, as if they too were learning to hope.